Lobbyists are like salespeople, but for laws. They work for companies, groups, or even foreign countries. Their job? Convince politicians to make laws that help their clients. Think of them as professional persuaders, but for things that affect all of us. They're always in Washington, hanging around Congress, throwing fancy parties, and making friends in high places. You won't see them on the news much, but they have a huge impact on what laws get made. Now, not all lobbyists are bad. Some represent good causes, like environmental protection or helping the poor. But many work for powerful industries like big pharma or oil companies. These industries have a lot of money and want laws that make them even richer. That's where things get tricky. Lobbyists are supposed to follow rules, but it's like trying to stop a toddler from eating candy. They find loopholes faster than you can say campaign contribution, and guess what? It works. Lobbyists are really good at their jobs. That's why understanding how they operate is super important. So how do lobbyists actually influence politicians? Well, it's not as simple as handing over a suitcase full of cash, though it's happened. One way is through campaign contributions. Running for office is crazy expensive, and politicians need money to run ads and travel. Lobbyists with their deep pockets can make big donations to campaigns. Coincidence? I think not. But wait, there's more. Lobbyists also wine and dine politicians, taking them to fancy dinners and sporting events. They write speeches for them, provide them with research, and even help them get re-elected. It's all about building relationships and creating a sense of obligation. And let's not forget about the revolving door of politics. Former politicians often become lobbyists themselves, using their connections and insider knowledge to influence their old buddies. It's like a game of musical chairs, where the music stops, and everyone ends up richer except us, the regular folks. Let's talk about some legendary lobbying wins or losses for the rest of us. Remember when credit card companies made it harder for students to get out of debt? That was lobbyists. Or how about when big tobacco convinced people that cigarettes were harmless? Lobbyists, again, they're like the puppet masters you never see, pulling the strings behind the scenes, but sometimes lobbyists get caught with their hands in the cookie jar. Remember Jack Abramoff? He was a super lobbyist who went to jail for bribing politicians. Or how about the whole Enron scandal, where energy lobbyists convinced Congress to deregulate the energy market, leading to blackouts and sky-high prices? Not exactly a shining moment for democracy. These scandals show that lobbying can easily cross the line into corruption. When money and influence become more important than the public good, everyone loses. Section 4. Does lobbying help us or just big companies? Now, some people argue that lobbying is a good thing. They say it gives a voice to different groups and helps educate lawmakers about complex issues. And sure, sometimes lobbying can lead to positive changes, but more often than not, it seems like the needs of the powerful and wealthy drown out the voices of everyday people. Think about it. Who has more money and resources to spend on lobbying? A group of cancer patients fighting for affordable healthcare, or a giant pharmaceutical company trying to protect its profits? The answer is pretty clear. Lobbying creates an uneven playing field, where the rich and powerful get to write the rules in their favor. And that's the fundamental problem with lobbying. It undermines the very idea of a government that represents the people. When politicians are more beholden to special interests than their constituents, democracy suffers. Section 5. Lobbying. Is it democracy or just fancy bribery? So what can we do about all this? That's the million-dollar question, or should I say the billion-dollar lobbying effort. Some people believe we need stricter campaign finance laws to reduce the influence of money in politics. Others argue for more transparency in lobbying, so we can see who's trying to influence our elected officials and how much they're spending. But the truth is, fixing the lobbying problem is like trying to herd a bunch of cats wearing tiny little suits. It's messy, complicated, and those cats are very good at what they do. Ultimately, it comes down to us, the voters, to demand better from our elected officials. We need to hold them accountable for who they listen to and whose interests they represent. Because if we don't, the only voices that will matter in Washington will be the ones with the fattest wallets and the most persuasive lobbyists. And that's not democracy, that's just fancy bribery with better suits.